but there's no denying the crowds he generates or the unusual support from a wide variety of people he is getting, including one David Stockman. You remember the guy Ronald Reagan took to the woodshed for questioning his policies? Well, it turns out David Stockman is worried about the debt he was then and the debt that now is approaching $19 trillion now, and he thinks we need someone like, well, the great disruptor.
I think we need a disruptor. We have been going down the same path now for 25 years, and what has it led to? 19 trillion of debt, a Federal Reserve that's out of control. They have had the interest rate at zero practically for 90 straight months. So the fact that they might start
rising after the first hike since, what, December, I mean, you welcome that.
I welcome that, but it's a pinprick. You have to recognize that the interest rate is the mother's milk of speculation when it's at zero. Wall Street funds itself in the money market, and the Fed has had its foot on that interest rate at zero for 90 months. It's generated the most spectacular run of speculation and bubble finance and overvaluation of everything, bonds and stocks that we've seen in history.
We've leveraged off of that mightily.
Mightily.
All right, so I have a feeling that they're not going to raise. They'll find any excuse not to. They might, but I just don't see them doing it. And they'll seize on any excuse not to. But obviously the markets have changed their minds that they're ready and okay with that. I know you feel about rates being too low, but how do you think the markets will respond to a hike?
Well, there's been a brave front in the last couple of days. If the Fed is going to raise rates, that must mean everything is swell. When has the Fed ever gotten it right about the economy?
True.
Did it see the crash coming in 2000? Did it see the housing bubble? Did it see the Wall Street meltdown in 2008?
Or the bubble it's creating now?
The bubble it's creating now. Or did it project the GDP growth rate even remotely accurately for the last 6 years running? The answer is no, no, and no. It's always wrong. It is lost. It has no clear view of the future, and therefore for the markets to conclude that everything is all better, that we're moving upward ever higher, I think is a huge error. And when we actually get to where I think we're going, which is a recession, there will be massive panic in selling on Wall Street.
When is that recession coming?
I would say by the end of this year or next year. After all, we're 84 months into this so-called recovery, as tepid as it's been. The longest one in history is a little over 100 months.
But you mentioned Donald Trump as being maybe a welcome figure in Washington because he's a great disruptor, yet he has said nothing about reining in entitlements or doing anything to address government growth. He wants to spend more on defense. And I'm thinking to myself, when I heard those disruptor comments of yours, David Stockman has no idea what this guy's like.
You know, I think I am not very happy with what he said about entitlements. You need to
at least. What is he going to disrupt if he's not even going to touch them?
Well, what I like is that he's not schooled in all the rationalizations, all the theories that Washington has been running on, both in foreign policy and domestically. And
but he has said we don't need to do anything there. He has said we don't need to do anything.
I think maybe he'll discover the facts of life, and at least he recognizes that 19 trillion of debt is more than we can live with, that if we continue down this path, it'll be 30 billion within a decade. We'll have a debt to GDP ratio equal to practically Greece. I think he at least has some sense that debt can be dangerous. He's had a lot of experience with it. So
but he could always, in the past, claim bankruptcy, right?
Yes,
the U.S. doesn't have that option.
I don't think we have that option, but essentially, that's what Fed policy today leads to. They're determined to have 2% inflation. What does that mean? After 30 years, a 30-year government bond is worth 55 cents on the dollar. Now, if that's not a default, if that's not a huge haircut, I don't know what is. So my point is, one way or another, with outright default someday down the road, if we keep going this way, or deflationary, inflationary default, we can't live with this debt.
But we always kick that proverbial can down the road. Now, you say it seems like Donald Trump is closer to getting it than Hillary Clinton by your definition, but either way, by the end of the year, whoever comes in will be coming into a recession.
I think whoever is elected will inherit a recession. After all, if you expect 4 years of no recession, that's 140 months from when the last one
The
ended.
argument that it could last long has been so weak to begin with, you could stretch it out.
You can't say that in light of what's going on in the world. We've got a deflationary recession emerging everywhere in the world. Japan, is an old age colony sinking into the sea. China is a massive speculative mania that's going to collapse any day.
Well, how do you think Donald Trump responds to China? You mentioned the fact that he thinks they're eating our lunch and taking advantage of us. We're on defense with them. Earlier in the campaign, he talked to tariffs against Chinese goods. He's dialed that back, but that he would ignite a trade war. And if you read the Chinese press, they're not fans of his. So he comes in. Are we looking at global trade friction?
Oh, I think there's going to be enormous friction because
with him,
with either Trump or Clinton.
So there's hell to pay no matter who gets in.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we have been living beyond our means for 30